And today, we're tackling something huge for English fluency. It's a secret, almost, that gets missed a lot, even by people who are pretty advanced. We're talking about how to actually train your brain to think directly in English. Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is basically to give you a shortcut, a way to sound more natural, more confident in English. And we'll do that by looking right into the mechanics of how your brain even handles language. We've dug into our main source for this, Train Your Brain. Think in English for fluency, and we've pulled out the most actionable stuff, the things you can start doing like right away.
Yeah, and this really is such a critical topic. If you're aiming for true fluency, the kind you use spontaneously in real life, this is fundamental. It's so much more than just, say, memorizing vocab lists or getting your head around complex grammar. Those are important too, of course. But this is about fundamentally changing how your mind processes language itself. It's about getting past that common, often subconscious block that holds so many learners back. Really, it's about making English feel less like a school subject you're studying and more like a natural part of how you think, how you express yourself. A core shift, definitely.
Okay, so let's jump right into the core of it then, because I think a lot of people listening might be asking themselves, look, isn't just speaking and listening enough? Yeah, if I practice my speaking, watch movies, listen to podcasts, won't I just naturally start thinking in English eventually? It sounds logical, doesn't it? But this is where it gets, well, really interesting and maybe a bit counterintuitive. Why is thinking in English so vital? What actually happens if you don't actively work on this?
That is the absolute key question. And our source, Train Your Brain, really hones in on this major pitfall, something most learners fall into, often without even realizing it. It calls it the translation trap. What typically happens is before you say anything, or sometimes even before you fully grasp what you're hearing, your brain does this internal translation step. You hear English, translate it to your native language to understand it, then you form your reply in your native language, and then you translate that back into English to speak. It might feel super quick, almost invisible, but the cumulative effect of doing that constantly, it's significant. It really holds back genuine fluency.
Wow. Yeah. I can see that. It's like having this little translator inside your head that has to approve every single message going in or out, a mandatory middleman. So what does that actually look like in, say, a normal conversation? What are the effects?
Well, the first and maybe the most obvious impact is those delays in conversation, that constant back and forth translation. It inevitably creates a pause, an unnatural hesitation. Picture this. You're at, I don't know, a work event. Things are moving fast, people are chatting, someone turns to you, asks something like, "So what did you think of that presentation?" Mm-hmm. Now, if you're stuck in that translation trap, your brain instantly goes into overdrive. Decode the English into, say, Spanish, formulate your insightful opinion in Spanish, then scramble to find the right English words, the right sentence structure. By the time you actually start speaking, maybe a few seconds have passed. It feels like an eternity in a fast conversation.
Right. The moment's gone, or it just feels awkward.
Exactly. The rhythm is bucking. Maybe the other person's already looking away, or you just feel flustered, like you're always one step behind. These little hesitations, they add up. They make the whole interaction feel slow, less engaging for everyone involved. It kills that spontaneity,
That paints a really clear picture. And it sounds incredibly frustrating. So it's not just slowing you down, it affects the quality too.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that translation process probably introduces errors as well.
You hit the nail on the head, that middleman. He's not always accurate. The second major consequence is definitely the increase in mistakes in grammar or word choice. When you translate directly, word for word from your native language, you're often dragging its grammar rules, its idioms, its sentence structures along with it. You impose them onto English, and this leads to phrases that just sound, well, wrong, or at least very unidiomatic, things a native speaker just wouldn't say that way. Like in some languages, the structure for "I am hungry" translates literally to "I have hunger." So someone thinking that way might actually say "I have hunger" in English.
Oh, okay. Instead of the natural "I am hungry."
Precisely. Or think about prepositions notoriously tricky. You might translate literally and say "depend from" instead of "depend on," or maybe "arrive to" instead of "arrive at" or "arrive in," or saying "open the light" instead of "turn on the light." These aren't just random slips. They're the direct result of trying to force one language's framework onto another. It sounds unnatural, sometimes even confusing.
Okay, so it's not just about sounding smooth. It's about being accurate and, sounding natural. And I can only imagine doing that constantly, that mental back and forth. It must be absolutely exhausting.
Oh, incredibly so. And that leads right into the third major issue. mental fatigue, and just generally lower confidence. Think about the cognitive load. Your brain isn't just processing language, it's acting as a simultaneous interpreter, constantly, in real time. That's heavy lifting. It leads to real mental exhaustion. It makes it harder to keep up in long conversations or focus when you're listening intently, or even just enjoy watching a movie in English without feeling drained.
Yeah, I can see that. It takes the fun out of it.
It really can. And when you're tired and you're aware of the pauses and you keep making those slightly unnatural mistakes, well, it chips away at your confidence, doesn't it? You start feeling inadequate, maybe less spontaneous. You might even shy away from speaking opportunities because it just feels like too much hard work. It can become a real negative cycle. But what's really fascinating, and this is the hopeful part, is what happens when you start to consciously shift away from translation. When you train yourself to think directly in English, these negative effects, they start to fade. You literally start speaking faster, more naturally, because you've cut out that middleman.
The bottleneck's gone.
Exactly. Thoughts flow more directly into English, and you start understanding English more directly, too, without that translation step. Listening becomes less like decoding and more like just understanding.
Naturalist comprehension.
Closer to it, yes. And maybe the biggest payoff, you feel more confident, more spontaneous in real situations because the mental strain is so much lower and you start trusting your ability to just talk. It's genuinely liberating.
That sounds like a massive difference. Not just technically, but in the whole feeling of using the language. A total shift. Okay, so how does the brain actually do that? Is there, like, a science behind it? What's happening in our heads when we learn to think in a new language?
There absolutely is. Our source talks about this really well, tying it into the neurology of learning, specifically neuroplasticity and the idea of neural pathways. See, your brain is incredibly adaptable. It forms these pathways, like little roads or trails, based on repeated actions and thoughts. Every time you think something, remember something, or process language, signals travel along these pathways. And the more a pathway gets used, the stronger and more efficient it becomes.
Like a dirt path becoming a paved road, then a highway.
Exactly like that. So if you're constantly thinking in your native language, which is the default for almost everyone starting out that pathway, the native language highway is super well established. It's wide, smooth, fast. It's the brain's preferred route because it's easy. So the challenge and the goal of thinking in English is to consciously build new English pathways, stronger ones. This takes deliberate effort, consistent exposure, yes, but crucially, intentional use, especially structuring your internal thoughts in English. You're using your brain's inherent ability to rewire itself. That's neuroplasticity. The source uses a great analogy. Think of it like switching from one road to another. You've always used the comfortable native language highway. Now you're deliberately turning onto this new English path. At first, it's bumpy, it's unpaved, it feels slow, awkward, you hit potholes like forgetting a word.
Right, you have to really focus on steering.
You do. It requires conscious effort. But, and this is key, the more you choose to travel that English path, the more you think, read, listen, speak directly in English.
Yeah.
The smoother it gets. You're literally paving that road with every English thought. Over time, with consistent use, that bumped track becomes its own highway. It becomes efficient, maybe even the default for certain situations. That initial effort is what lays the foundation, and consistency is what makes it strong and reliable. It's about forging that direct link. Thought straight into English. No detour needed.
That analogy really clicks. It makes it feel achievable, like something you can actively build. It's not magic, it's construction. Okay, so we know why it's crucial. We know how the brain adapts.
Yeah.
So how do we actually do the construction? How do we build these pathways? The source lays out a pretty clear step-by-step process, right?
It does. It's a very logical progression, starting simple and building up. No need to feel overwhelmed. The very first step, the foundation really, is step one. Start small, think in words. This is about the absolute basics, just consciously identifying single English words for everyday objects and actions you encounter. It's about building that initial granular awareness. The goal is to connect the thing directly to the English word, cutting out your native language entirely from that specific link.
So like, I see my keys, and instead of thinking the word my first language, I just immediately think keys.
Exactly that, just keys. The source really stresses making this a constant running habit throughout your day. Instead of, say, the Spanish word agua, you see water, you think water. You sit on a chair, you think chair. You pick up your phone, think phone. Use your computer, think computer. Just do this constantly, as often as you possibly can. Every common object, every simple action, make that immediate mental switch to the English word. It starts forging those very first tiny connections, training your brain to see English as a primary label, not a translation.
Okay, that feels manageable. Just labeling the world around me in English internally. So once that starts feeling a bit more automatic, what's the next step up?
The natural next step is step 2. Think in simple phrases. Once you're comfortable with those individual words, you start stringing them together into short, complete thoughts or expressions. This step is all about developing very basic sentence structure and getting used to expressing simple, everyday ideas immediately in English, taking those single words and making them functional.
Right, so moving from just thinking hungry to thinking I'm hungry, or seeing it sunny and thinking it's sunny.
Precisely. The source gives examples just like that. I'm hungry, it's a nice day. Maybe you think time to go when you're leaving, or I need coffee first thing in the morning. The core idea is, whenever something simple happens, or you have a basic thought or feeling, try to capture it with a short English phrase in your mind. This builds that bridge from just vocabulary to actual connected thought. It makes your internal monologue start to take shape in English, even with just 2 or 3 words. It's the building block.
Okay, that makes sense. Words, then simple phrases. Feels like a natural ladder. What's run number 3?
Step 3 is where it gets really powerful, I think. It's narrate your day in English. This takes the simple phrases concept and expands it massively. Basically, you become your own internal commentator. Throughout your day, you actively talk to yourself in English, usually silently, in your head, which is easiest. Or aloud if you're alone. You describe what you're doing, what you're seeing, how you're feeling, maybe what you're planning to do next, all in English.
Wow, like a running commentary on my own life. A constant inner voice, just narrating everything, but in English.
That's a perfect way to describe it. Imagine waking up. Okay, alarm's going off, need to get up, still feel tired. Making breakfast. Right, boiling water for tea. Where's the milk? Going outside. It's raining again. Should have brought my umbrella. At work. Meeting at 10. Need to print those documents. Wonder what Jane needs. This constant internal chatter in English makes the language feel so much more integrated into your actual life. And the source says even just 10 minutes of this focused narration a day significantly helps your brain think faster in English. It makes that internal dialogue feel completely natural over time. Continuous immersion generated by you.
That's a brilliant technique. You don't need anyone else. You're your own practice partner all day long. Okay, so words, phrases, narrating. Step 4 must be about taking it outside our heads, right?
Exactly. Step 4, use English in real-life situations. This is where you consciously bridge that gap between internal thought and external action. You look for everyday opportunities to actually use English, even in small ways. The source suggests really practical things like try writing texts or emails to friends in English, even if you normally wouldn't. When you search for something online, force yourself to use English search terms.
Right, instead of defaulting to my native language for Google.
Exactly. Or if you call customer service, choose the English option if there is one. Even simple things like writing your shopping list or setting phone reminders, do it in English. Milk, eggs, bread. Call mom at 7 p.m. Now, the source is very clear on this, and it's important. It might feel slow or unnatural at first.
Yeah, I can imagine feeling a bit self-conscious, even just typing a search query differently.
Totally normal. There's resistance there. But pushing through that initial awkwardness is vital because, as the source says, fluency grows with use. Every single time you consciously choose English in one of these real-life moments, however small, you're strengthening those pathways. You're making English a functional tool for navigating your actual world, not just something you practice internally.
That makes perfect sense. Moving from the mental gym to the real world. Okay, now for what you hinted earlier might be the toughest, but maybe the most critical step of all.
It really is, I think. This is step 5, stop translating. The source pulls no punches here. It calls this the hardest habit to break, but also critical for genuine fluency. We have to actively dismantle that old, inefficient process. Native thought translates speak, and replace it rigorously with the direct route. Thought, English, speak, that's the goal. Cut out the middleman completely.
Okay, that's the ideal, the direct connection. But here's the question everyone asks. What happens when you just don't know the English word for something? That's surely when everyone snaps back to translating, right? Yeah. You feel stuck.
That's the exact moment where this step becomes truly powerful. The source offers a brilliant, game-changing piece of advice here. If you don't know a word in English, describe it using other words instead of switching languages. Way. This is huge. It forces your brain to stay in English mode, to problem solve within English even when you hit a vocabulary gap. It blocks that escape hatch back to your native tongue. The source gives a great example. Let's say you want to talk about a wee. That's a Bengali word for a decorative forehead jewel. Instead of saying, I don't know the English for when, you challenge yourself.
You have to explain it using the English you do know.
Exactly. You might say, oh, it's that small decorative thing, like a piece of jewelry that women sometimes wear on their forehead. Or if you forget the word screwdriver, you could say that tool you use for turning screws. This strategy is incredibly effective. Why? Because it forces direct English thinking and problem solving. And as a massive bonus, it rapidly expands your descriptive skills and your ability to paraphrase. You learn to talk around the words you don't know. That's a vital skill for real spontaneous conversation. It builds resourcefulness.
That is brilliant. It's like turning a vocabulary gap into a practice opportunity. Building circumlocution skills. Okay, so that covers the big don't. What about more structured do's? Are there specific exercises we can use?
Yes, which leads perfectly into step 6. Practice with thought prompts. This is about giving yourself little mental challenges or assignments in English. It adds structure to your internal practice, going beyond just moment-to-moment narration. Think of them as daily mental workouts. The source suggests things like, take a minute and mentally describe your morning routine in detail. Or imagine you're ordering coffee at a busy cafe. What exactly would you think and say? Or maybe tell yourself a short story from your childhood in English.
So more focused thematic thinking exercises.
Exactly. These prompts push you to organize your thoughts, use specific vocabulary, and construct more complex sentences internally. You can just do it in your head. Or, as the source suggests, you could even speak your answer aloud and record it. Then listen back to see how you did. Where did you hesitate? What words were tricky? It's structured practice that simulates real communication challenges, even when you're alone. It helps integrate everything you're learning.
That sounds like a really effective way to push yourself mentally. Okay, we're almost through the steps. What's the final one in this systematic approach?
The final piece is step 7. Watch and listen without subtitles. The goal here is pure immersion. To absorb natural English, the way it's actually spoken, and train your brain for direct comprehension without relying on translation as a crutch. The why behind this is pretty straightforward but powerful. When you remove subtitles, especially subtitles in your own language, your brain has to work differently. It starts connecting the sounds it hears directly to the meaning using context, visuals, tone of voice. It bypasses that need to translate every word.
Like how kids learn, right?
Oh.
They don't get subtitles for life.
Exactly. They associate sounds with experiences. And adults can leverage this too. Your brain is smart. It'll start picking up patterns, common phrases, the general gist, even if you don't catch every single word at first. You rely on context and overall meaning. The more you expose yourself to this kind of input where you understand most of it, but maybe not all, the better your brain gets at direct, intuitive comprehension. Useful tools. English podcasts like this one, hopefully. Movies, TV shows you enjoy, YouTube interviews, vlogs, anything authentic. Consistency is key. The more you listen without that safety net, the more your brain learns to just understand English directly. It cements those pathways.
Okay, wow, that's a comprehensive set of steps. From single words right up to ditching subtitles. You've heard the theory, you've heard the steps. So what does this actually mean for you, listening right now? Let's try and put a tiny bit of this into practice together, right here, right now. The idea is just to get your brain firing in English mode for a moment, using some of those concepts we just talked about. Feel those pathways sparking.
Let's do it. A quick mental workout. Ready? So as you're listening, just glance around you. Wherever you are, what's the very first object your eyes land on? Got it. Okay. Now, immediately, no hesitation, just think the English word for it. Don't translate. Just the English word pops into your head. For me, it's microphone. Pause for listener approx 3 to 5 seconds. Okay, good. Let's try one more. Look something else nearby. Another simple object. What is it? Just think the English word. Direct connection. Pause 3 to 5 seconds. And one last one. Third object. See it. Think the English word for it. Now, pause 3 to 5 seconds. That tiny action, that immediate link, that's step 1 in action, bypassing the translation habit.
Perfect. Simple, immediate. That's the foundation. Now let's try moving up just one rung to step 2, forming a simple phrase internally.
Exactly. Still just in your head. Think about the weather where you are right now, or maybe just how you're feeling. Can you describe it with a very simple English phrase? Like, if it's cloudy, maybe you think, it is cloudy. If you're feeling focused, maybe, I am focused. If you're walking, I am walking. Just one short, simple phrase describing your current reality. Take a moment. Pause for listener approx 5-7 seconds. Got one? Good. It's about expressing that immediate thought directly in English.
Excellent. Okay, and let's try just a tiny bit of step 3, that self-narration.
Right. In your mind, what's one simple thing you are doing right this second? Or maybe just did. Narrate it to yourself. For example, I might think, I am talking on a podcast. You might think, I am listening to this deep dive. Or maybe, I just took a sip of water. Or I'm sitting on the sofa. Just one quick sentence describing your action. Pause for listener approx 7-10 seconds.
See? That's it. That's how those pathways start to get built. It's not about crafting perfect essays in your head instantly. It's those small, consistent moments of direct English thought. Little thoughts, simple phrases, short narrations. They build up. They grow into fluent, spontaneous expression over time. It's accumulation.
Precisely. It's like building muscle. Consistency is everything.
No.
And speaking of building faster, our source, Train Your Brain, also gives some excellent bonus tips, things you can add on top of those 7 steps to really accelerate the process and make it stick.
Ooh, bonus tips. Always good. Let's hear them. What else can we do to really get this thinking in English habit locked in?
Okay, first one, and this is huge for building actual speaking confidence alongside the thinking. Speak every day, even alone. We touched on the internal monologue, but actually verbalizing it, even to yourself, is powerful. Don't underestimate talking to yourself. You could practice in front of a mirror, sounds weird maybe, but it connects the words to your physical self. Or record yourself on your phone and listen back. That gives you great feedback on how you actually sound. And the source emphasizes you don't need hours. Even 5 minutes a day trains fluency. It builds the mental link, yes, but also the physical confidence in actually making the English sounds. It makes it feel less theoretical.
That's a great point. Getting comfortable with the physical act of speaking English. Okay, what's another bonus?
Next, something really practical and reflective. Keep an English-only journal. Simple instruction. Just write, say, 3 to 5 sentences each day about your day, your thoughts, feelings, whatever. But crucial part only in English. No cheating. The benefit. It reinforces that direct English thought, but in written form, which uses slightly different brain circuits. It helps you organize your thoughts in English, practice sentence structure in a low-pressure way, plus it forces you to confront those vocabulary gaps again and find ways to express yourself using the English you have.
I like that. A small daily writing habit. Builds fluency, clarifies thought. Nice. What about something for our environment?
Good segue. The next tip is super practical for your space. Label objects in your room, literally. Get some sticky notes and write English words on them. Stick them on your chair, your laptop, the window, the door, the light switch. The benefit is constant passive reinforcement. You'll start to just see English everywhere. Every time you glance at the television, bam, another little reinforcement of the word. You're basically turning your home or office into a low-key English immersion zone. It builds those associations almost subconsciously.
That's clever. Like environmental flashcards you can't ignore. Okay,
Yeah.
You mentioned surprising tips earlier. Is there another one that might seem a bit unusual?
I think this next one is fascinating psychologically. Talk to yourself in English when you're emotional. Yeah, it sounds a bit strange maybe. But the idea is whenever you feel a strong emotion, anger, happiness, sadness, excitement, frustration, make a conscious effort to think about that feeling, to label it in English. So instead of internally yelling in your native language, try thinking, wow, I am really angry about this, or this makes me so happy. Why? The source explains that strong emotions act like anchors for memory. These emotions help the brain remember better.
So the emotional charge makes the language stick more.
Exactly. You create this really strong, vivid connections between English words and deeply felt experiences. It makes the language feel more personal, more real, not just academic. It helps internalize it on a much deeper level.
That's a really powerful insight, connecting language to core feelings. Okay, so we have all these steps, all these tips. What's the final overarching piece of advice?
It's the one that ties everything together and maybe the most important. Be patient, but be consistent. Learning to think in a new language isn't instant. It's a gradual process, a rewiring job. There will be good days and days where it feels like you're stuck. That's totally normal. Don't get discouraged. The source gives the formula, really. Practice daily, even just a little bit. Stay consistent, keep showing up, and make it part of your lifestyle, not just another task to check off. If you do those things, your brain will adapt. It will start defaulting to English more and more. The key is integrating it sustainably. Start small. Look for those opportunities. Make it natural, maybe even fun. Tiny, consistent steps beat huge, infrequent leaps every single time. It's the slow, steady pressure that shapes the stone.
Wow. This whole deep dive really drives home that thinking in English isn't just some fancy extra skill. It feels like the key, the absolute foundation for reaching that effortless, natural fluency we all aim for. It's the thing that removes that frustrating barrier between what you want to say and actually saying it smoothly and confidently.
Absolutely. And maybe the most profound thing, as the source puts it, is that doing this makes English feel less like something foreign you're studying and more like, well, like your language. It becomes woven into your actual thought process. So the advice really is start small, be patient with yourself, stay consistent, and try to enjoy the journey. Remember that final thought from the source. You're not just learning English, you're training your brain to live in English. That shift in perspective, that's huge. It changes everything.
That's a perfect note to end on, a truly transformative way to think about it. So if you found this deep dive valuable, if you're feeling inspired and ready to keep building those new English pathways in your brain, then make sure you subscribe for more daily English practice. We'll be back soon with another deep dive. Thanks for joining us.